On May 27th, 2021, I was accepted into Fiverr Pro. In this video, I'm going to talk about how much more money I was able to make as a Fiverr Pro versus the previous 6 months as just a level 2 Fiverr seller. The whole point is to create a discussion around whether or not applying to and joining Fiverr Pro might be a worthwhile endeavor for you if you're looking for ways to maximize the amount of money you're making for time spent working on Fiverr projects. Because personally, from the short amount of time that I've been a Fiverr Pro, it's not even just about the amount of money I made in my first month. There's a lot of things that I'm starting to notice are happening that to me tell me that I'm gonna come to expect a lot more top months coming up in the next 6 months to a year, just based on the types of clients and the interactions I've been having. So I'm gonna talk to you about that type of stuff as well. Also, just in case you're here to just hear how much money I made in that first month of Fiverr Pro, it's in the title of this video, but I'll tell you now as well. August 2021, I made $3,655 on Fiverr as a prorated seller. Also, if you like this type of video and you're trying to figure out ways to make money on Fiverr, you should really consider subscribing to the channel. I put out 2 videos a week, just like this one, that talk about tips and tricks to make more money on Fiverr. Subscribe, I really appreciate you. Okay, so for anyone not familiar with Fiverr Pro is a program that Fiverr sellers can apply to become a part of. Fiverr Pro sellers are known for providing exceptionally high levels of both customer service and quality of service to Fiverr buyers. Fiverr makes it very clear when you hit the Fiverr Pro webpage and start applying that they only accept 1% of sellers into the Fiverr Pro program. And the whole idea is that when clients are going to search for a Fiverr Pro seller, they can be confident that whoever they get is going to have a track record and have been vetted to provide great service and great customer service. It's a premium services offering that Fiverr's created to allow, a certain level of buyers to purchase with the peace of mind that they're gonna get great work every time. Basically, you can think of Fiverr Pro as a place that large companies, if you're thinking Fortune 500 companies that might want to hire or contract work out to freelancers, they're the types of clients that I think Fiverr is aiming for to become Fiverr Pro customers. It's a great service. I got approved as a Fiverr Pro seller in the email copy category, which happens to be my most profitable category since I started selling on Fiverr. I've got 4 email copy gigs that are currently active, and across those 4 I have 269 rated orders, which is great. And if I were to estimate how much of my total Fiverr earnings have come from email copy gigs, I would say that number's probably over $45,000 since starting on Fiverr. And I'm just giving you this information to give you an idea of how lucrative these gigs have been for me even before becoming a Fiverr Pro seller, just so you have something to compare to. So for the first 6 months of 2021, I earned just over $13,000. That's from January to June. In June, I wasn't yet fully a Fiverr Pro seller. My average monthly earnings during that 6-month period was $2,185 per month. If we compare that to my July Fiverr earnings, where I had just become a Fiverr Pro seller, in July I made $3,655. That's almost $1,500 more in just my first month as a Fiverr Pro seller. That's a huge increase. The other cool thing was that the amount of tips I was receiving as a seller also increased quite a bit. Looking at those first 6 months of 2021, where I wasn't a Fiverr Pro seller, I earned on average about $30 per month in tips, which is amazing. Tips are something I'm not expecting. People are already paying me for the work that I'm doing. So a tip and receiving a tip is the buyer totally going above and beyond, and I appreciate it no matter what the amount. But if we look at July, my first month as a Fiverr Pro seller, I made $68 in tips. That's more than double the average over the previous 6 months. This is awesome. It's fantastic, and I was so pleased to see this level of change becoming a Fiverr Pro seller, because it was a pretty, time-consuming process to apply. So why have I been making more money as a Fiverr Pro seller? So the first thing I've noticed is, since becoming a Fiverr Pro seller, the types of clients that I've been working with have been hiring me to work on more complex projects. And I've noticed that they've also seem to have the ability to think further in the future, where they're planning for future projects and not just hiring me to complete something they need done right now today. Basically, it seems like they have more of a game plan laid out and understand the steps they need to take to achieve their desired outcome. And in the case of a freelancer, it seems like they've planned out at which stages they're going to need the help from people like me on Fiverr, which is really helpful because, you know, they're coming to me with more of an understanding and more of a realistic understanding of the level of work required to get their desired outcome. Whereas prior to becoming a Fiverr Pro, I found that a lot of the clients I was working with would say, hey, I want to get more clients, I want to get an email campaign done, one email campaign. They hire you, they try that one email campaign, and then they stop. Or recruiters saying, hey, I want an email blast to go out to potential candidates. They do one campaign and then they forget about you. When you level up to like that Fiverr Pro level, people realize or seem to realize that to have successes, continued successes over time with marketing through hiring a copywriter, you have to constantly feed the marketing engine. You have to keep the wheels turning to keep filling your pipeline of potential customers, recruits, whatever. My Fiverr Pro clients have been understanding that and are way more receptive when I suggest doing multiple campaigns throughout the year. In only my first month, I've been noticing this, so that's a sign of a lot of great things to come for sure. So to give you an example, in my first couple weeks as a pro seller, I sold my first pro deal from one of my email copywriting gigs. It was for a couple $100s. Within a month, that person had purchased like 4 or 5 other gigs for me for a total of about $1,000, and we have more projects planned already for later in the year. So not only did I make about $1,000 from one person in 1 month, he and I have an understanding that we're going to be working together for a long period of time. So my first client is already turning into a multiple thousands of dollars per year type of client. And while that did happen before I became a Fiverr Pro, it was way less frequent. And since this happened basically my first order, my hopes are really high and I'm pretty optimistic about what the future holds for me as a pro seller, which is, a pretty interesting piece of feedback if you're considering to become a pro yourself. Another thing I started to notice was average order value. So remember when I said I made about $13,000 the first 6 months of 2021? To make that money, I had to complete 129 orders, about 21 and a half orders per month. On average, the average order value for those orders was $101, which is fantastic. I don't have any complaints there. But if we look at July, my first month as a Fiverr Pro seller, I made $3,655 across 22 orders. So my average order value went up from $101 to $166 per order. That is a massive increase in the amount of money I'm making for each project I'm completing. And the interesting thing is the amount of work to complete each project didn't increase by the same margin. So I'm now definitely being rewarded much more for every hour I'm spending as a Fiverr seller, which is fantastic. And I've made videos about this. That should be the goal, right? Like we gotta value our time and find ways to maximize the amount of money we're making for each minute we spend as a freelancer. And it's just a testament that going through the process of becoming a Fiverr Pro seller will reward you. It took me years to build up the amount of ratings and experience on Fiverr where I felt I was ready to become a pro seller. And then you go through this long application process, this onboarding process, and to see that your time is just being valued much higher having become a Fiverr Pro. Obviously prices increase as a Fiverr Pro as well. It's really satisfying and makes me feel like it was well worth the wait. So here are a couple of things I think you should consider before just taking the leap of becoming a Fiverr Pro. And I know I've been gushing this whole video about how great it's been, but there's some things you need to understand. The first thing is that Fiverr Pro requires a minimum order value of $100 across your gig. So if you're someone like me, before joining Fiverr Pro, my starting point was about $40. So you definitely see a big increase there. But there's a few things you need to consider with that before taking the plunge. And the first is that becoming Fiverr Pro, you gotta understand that it needs to be a mutually beneficial situation for you and your clients, right? Like obviously Fiverr's raised the bar and saying, hey, minimum gig price needs to be $100, and that's great. You're gonna be making more money for each gig. But your clients are going to come to expect a certain level of service that comes with that, and you need to be prepared to deliver that top quality service. It's not all going to be a walk in the park. You're probably going to get some clients that are a lot more demanding than the types of clients you might have been getting when you're charging them $5. Maybe not, but that's just my 2 cents. The other thing I would recommend you consider is before applying to become a Fiverr Pro, take a look and do some research on the competition. You know, we mentioned the higher $100 minimum gig price tag, but look at the competition. Are you prepared to compete against this new arena of sellers? Do you think you can compete? How do you think you stack up against them? And really think about ways that you could offer a unique value proposition to Fiverr Pro clients, because you know, you're entering Fiverr Pro. This is the arena where the best of the best try to sell. And if you want to try to sell there, you got to start thinking like a pro. So take a look at the competition and be honest with yourself. If you notice there's a bit of a gap that you need to overcome, whether that be an experience gap or figuring out what your real value offering is, you should take the time to figure those things out before applying, because then you might just be a little disappointed if you do get into Fiverr Pro and you weren't ready. It might be discouraging. And that all falls back on the topic of value. I talk about value a lot on this channel, and if you're becoming a Fiverr Pro seller or you want to become a Fiverr Pro seller, you need to constantly be thinking of ways that you can provide value to your clients. That's going to allow you to raise your prices to Fiverr Pro levels without losing business, win more negotiations, and make more customers happy, getting you 5-star reviews that will ultimately further help you grow your Fiverr Pro business. So always keep that in mind. Anyways, that's it. I believe in you. If you're considering joining Fiverr Pro, I totally recommend that you take the plunge. It's been an amazing experience for me so far, and I think it can be an amazing experience for you too. And remember, I'm always here to answer any questions you have throughout the process. Just hit me up in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So thanks for watching, and until next time, cheers.